They tell you to chase people, to explain yourself, to keep proving your intentions. Islam teaches the opposite. The moment you pull away for the sake of Allah, something strange happens. The same people who ignored you begin to feel your absence. The same voices that took you lightly begin to lower their tone, not because you became colder, but because you became anchored. Detachment is not weakness in Islam, it is clarity. It is tawakkul in motion. It is knowing that what is meant for you cannot be taken by anyone, and what is not meant for you cannot be forced. When you stop clinging, Allah rearranges everything. 1. Detachment is trust in Allah, not emotional escape. Most people misunderstand detachment because they are looking at it through a psychological or emotional lens instead of a spiritual one. They assume detachment means becoming cold, distant, or emotionally numb. They imagine someone who shuts down, stops caring, and builds walls around their heart. That is not detachment. That is fear wearing the mask of strength. Islam does not teach emotional shutdown. Islam teaches emotional discipline rooted in trust in Allah. Detachment in Islam is not running away from people. It is running toward Allah. It is the quiet realization that no human being was ever meant to carry the weight of your peace, your worth, or your future. When you expect people to validate you, choose you, or complete you, you are placing a burden on creation that only the Creator can carry. That is where pain begins. True detachment starts when you understand a hard truth. Hearts are not in your control. You can be sincere and still be misunderstood. You can be loyal and still be replaced. You can be kind and still be taken for granted. None of that means you failed. It means you were trying to control what Allah never gave you authority over. Outcomes are not in your control. You can do everything right and still not get the result you wanted. Respect is not in your control. You cannot force people to value you the way you deserve. The moment you internalize this, something inside you relaxes. You stop fighting reality. You stop exhausting yourself emotionally. You stop blaming yourself for other people's choices. Only Allah controls hearts. This is not a motivational idea. It is a foundational belief. When Allah wants to soften someone's heart toward you, it happens without effort. When He wants to distance someone from you, no amount of explaining, pleasing, or chasing will change that. Detachment is accepting this without resentment. It is saying, Ya Allah, I have done my part. I leave the rest to you. This is where most people struggle. They confuse effort with attachment. Islam encourages effort but warns against emotional dependence. You are allowed to care. You are allowed to love. You are allowed to try, but you are not allowed to anchor your peace to how people respond. That is where detachment begins. When you detach, you stop worshiping reactions. You stop measuring your worth by how quickly someone replies, how warmly they treat you, or how consistently they show up. You stop replaying conversations in your head, wondering what you should have said differently. You stop shrinking yourself to avoid being abandoned. All of that is emotional servitude. Detachment breaks that chain. You begin to act from principle, not fear. You speak when it is right, not when you are desperate to be heard. You give without keeping score. You walk away without announcing it. Your actions become clean, not reactive. This is not arrogance. This is spiritual alignment. You also stop bending your dignity to be accepted. This is critical. Many people lose themselves slowly, one compromise at a time, just to stay connected to someone. They tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, and emotional neglect because they are afraid of losing the relationship. Islam does not honor connections that require you to abandon your self-respect. Detachment gives you the strength to say, if staying requires me to lose myself, then leaving is obedience to Allah. When you detach, you stop placing your peace in the hands of creation. This is where real strength appears. Your mood is no longer dictated by how others treat you. Your sense of worth no longer rises and falls with attention. You are not emotionally hijacked by praise or destroyed by criticism. You become internally anchored. This inner anchoring changes how people experience you. When Allah sees you relying on Him instead of chasing validation, He places weight in your presence. This is not something you can fake. It is not confidence training or personality. It is spiritual gravity. People feel it even when you say nothing. Your silence no longer feels needy. It feels deliberate. Your absence no longer feels like weakness. It feels intentional. Your words carry more meaning because you are no longer using them to beg for understanding. You are no longer trying to convince anyone of your value. Detachment removes desperation, and desperation is what repels respect. There is a subtle shift that happens when you stop chasing. People sense that you are no longer available for emotional games. They realize they cannot control you with approval or punishment. They notice that you are calm, even when outcomes are uncertain. That calmness is not emotional numbness. It is tawakkul in action. This is why detachment is powerful. It is not about becoming less human. It is about becoming more grounded in faith. Your heart still feels, but it no longer panics. Your love still exists, but it no longer chains you. Your hope is still alive, but it is placed in Allah, not people. When you reach this state, even loss feels different. Rejection does not crush you. Distance does not destroy you. You grieve if needed, but you do not collapse. You understand that Allah removes people to protect you, not to punish you. Detachment is not emotional escape. It is spiritual maturity. It is the moment you stop asking people to be what only Allah can be for you. And when that happens, your presence changes. Your energy changes. Your life begins to realign. That is why people notice you more when you pull away. Not because you are playing a game, but because you have finally stepped out of one. 2. Chasing weakens your position without you realizing it. Most people don't see chasing as weakness. They see it as effort. They think being available all the time is loyalty. They think explaining themselves repeatedly is clarity. They think holding on tighter will fix distance. Islam exposes the illusion in all of this. Chasing does not strengthen connection. It distorts it. The moment you start chasing someone emotionally, the balance shifts. Without realizing it, you move from a position of dignity to a position of need. And need is felt immediately, even if it is never spoken. People may not be able to explain it, but they sense it. The tone changes. The respect softens. The urgency disappears on their side because it has increased on yours. Islam does not teach desperation, it teaches composure. When you chase, you are no longer acting from confidence in Allah. You are acting from fear of loss, fear of being misunderstood, fear of being left, fear of being forgotten. That fear begins to guide your behavior, and once fear is in control, wisdom leaves quietly. You start over-explaining things that did not require explanation. You start justifying yourself to people who have already decided how they see you. You start tolerating behavior you would never advise someone else to tolerate. None of this happens suddenly. It happens slowly, and that is why it is dangerous. Chasing makes you loud in places where silence would have protected your dignity. Islam teaches that not every door is meant to be knocked on repeatedly. Some doors close because Allah is redirecting you. When you chase, you resist that redirection. You argue with qadr instead of trusting it. You try to force closeness where Allah has placed distance for a reason. Every time you chase, you send an unspoken message. I need this more than you do. That message does not inspire respect. It creates comfort for the other person and anxiety for you. They relax because they know you are still there. You become restless because you are unsure where you stand. This imbalance drains your peace. The Prophet never chased people to prove his worth. He delivered the truth with clarity and dignity. Those who were meant to accept it did. Those who turned away were allowed to leave. This was not indifference, it was certainty. Certainty that guidance comes from Allah, not persuasion. When you chase, you confuse attachment with responsibility. You start believing it is your job to fix the relationship, fix the misunderstanding, fix the distance. Islam does not place that burden on you. Your responsibility is intention and effort within limits, not control over outcomes. The more you chase, the less your presence is valued. This is a hard truth, but it is real. Familiarity without boundaries breeds carelessness. When someone knows you will always explain, always wait, always forgive without accountability, they subconsciously stop investing. Not because they are evil, but because human nature responds to balance. Detachment restores that balance. When you stop chasing, you don't disappear emotionally. You simply return to your center. You stop performing for attention. You stop filling silence with anxiety-driven words. You stop proving what should already be obvious. This shift is uncomfortable at first. Your ego will panic. Your emotions will whisper that you are losing control. But in reality, you are regaining it. Pulling away does not mean cutting people off harshly. It means stepping back internally. It means allowing space where there was pressure. It means letting people come to you with intention instead of you dragging connection forward. When you stop chasing, you give Allah room to act. Many people block Allah's help by refusing to let go. They hold on so tightly that nothing else can enter. Detachment opens your hands. It says, Ya Allah, if this is good for me, keep it. If not, remove it without damaging my heart. That dua is powerful. The moment you pull away, people feel the difference. Your energy is no longer demanding. Your presence is no longer predictable. Your attention is no longer guaranteed. This is not manipulation. This is self-respect returning to its rightful place. And something interesting happens. Either people step forward with sincerity, or they fade away completely. Both outcomes are mercy. If they step forward, it is because they value you, not because you chase them into staying. If they fade, it is because they were feeding off your effort, not your essence. Detachment exposes this clearly, without arguments, without confrontation. Chasing keeps you trapped in uncertainty. Detachment gives you clarity. It also protects your iman. Constant emotional chasing creates anxiety, and anxiety weakens tawakkul. When you detach, you remember that Allah is al-Wakil, the one who manages affairs. You stop acting like everything depends on you. You still show good character. You still act with kindness. But you no longer abandon yourself to be chosen. This is why chasing weakens your position. It moves your heart away from Allah and places it at the mercy of people. Detachment brings it back where it belongs. When you stop chasing, you don't lose value. You reveal it. And that is why people notice you more when you pull away. Not because you became distant, but because you became centered. 3. Detachment filters who deserves access to you. One of the greatest mistakes people make is assuming that everyone who shows interest deserves closeness. Islam does not teach open access to the heart. It teaches wisdom. Detachment is the filter that wisdom uses to protect you. When you are emotionally attached, access becomes cheap. You reply quickly, explain endlessly, forgive repeatedly, and tolerate behavior that quietly erodes your self-respect. You tell yourself it is patience, but deep down, it is fear of losing connection. Detachment exposes the difference between patience for the sake of Allah and self-betrayal for the sake of people. Not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. Some are lessons, some are tests. Some are mirrors showing you what still needs healing. Detachment allows you to observe this without panic. Instead of clinging, you watch. Instead of reacting, you assess. Instead of chasing clarity from people, you allow Allah to reveal it through their behavior. Islam teaches that actions speak louder than intentions people claim. Detachment gives actions space to show themselves. When you stop overgiving, those who only benefited from your emotional availability become uncomfortable. When you stop initiating everything, those who never intended to invest fade away. This is not loss, this is purification, Access is not a right, it is a responsibility. Detachment reminds you of that. When you detach, you stop auditioning for a place in people's lives. You stop proving your loyalty, your sincerity, your worth. You begin to realize that the people meant to be close to you will not require you to beg for consistency. They will not punish you with silence. They will not keep you guessing where you stand. Detachment sharpens your discernment. You begin to notice patterns you once ignored. Who only reaches out when they need something? Who disappears when you need support? Who respects your boundaries and who resents them? Attachment blinds you to these realities because you are emotionally invested in a certain outcome. Detachment frees you to see the truth without excuses. This is deeply Islamic. The heart was never meant to be attached blindly. The Prophet warned against placing trust where it does not belong. Detachment is not suspicion, it is balance. You still give people a chance, but you no longer give them unlimited access without accountability. When you pull away emotionally, you allow people to meet you where you stand instead of you lowering yourself to reach them. This is where filtering begins. Some people will rise, others will walk away. Both outcomes are clarity. Many people fear detachment because they think it will make them lonely. In reality, attachment to the wrong people is what creates loneliness. Being surrounded by people who drain you, misunderstand you, or only value what you provide leaves you emotionally empty. Detachment removes that emptiness by removing false closeness. Islam values quality over quantity. A few sincere connections are worth more than many shallow ones. Detachment helps you preserve energy for those who actually deserve it. It teaches you that your time, your attention, and your emotional presence are amana, trusts from Allah, not resources to be wasted. When you stop giving everyone access, you begin to feel lighter, not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped carrying what was never yours to carry. You stop being the emotional support system for people who refuse to grow. You stop being the fixer, the explainer, the one who always understands while never being understood. Detachment also protects your iman. Emotional overexposure leads to resentment. Resentment hardens the heart. A hardened heart struggles to feel closeness to Allah. Detachment prevents that cycle. It allows you to withdraw before bitterness forms. It allows you to preserve softness without becoming weak. There is also a hidden mercy in detachment. When you step back, Allah often removes people who would have hurt you later. What feels like distance now is often protection in disguise. What feels like rejection is often redirection. Detachment gives you the patience to accept this without spiraling. People who truly value you will not be offended by your detachment. They will respect it. They will understand that closeness is earned through consistency, honesty, and mutual effort. Those who disappear were never attached to you. They were attached to the access you provided. This is why detachment is powerful. It filters without confrontation. It reveals without arguments. It protects without bitterness. You do not need to announce boundaries when detachment enforces them naturally. You do not need to accuse people when their absence answers your questions. You do not need closure from everyone when clarity arrives through distance. Detachment teaches you to let people show you who they are instead of trying to change who they are, and that is freedom. When you live this way, your relationships become cleaner, fewer misunderstandings, less emotional chaos, more peace, more alignment with your values and your faith. This is not coldness. This is maturity. Detachment does not push people away. It simply allows the wrong ones to fall away, and what remains is lighter, truer, and far closer to what Allah intended for you. 4. When you pull away, Allah steps in. One of the hardest things for the human heart is letting go of control. We want to manage outcomes, secure relationships, and guarantee results. We think if we just try harder, explain better, or hold on longer, things will work out. Islam teaches a different path. It teaches that control is an illusion. and reliance on Allah is the real strength. When you pull away, you are not giving up. You are stepping aside so Allah can act. As long as you are forcing situations, Allah allows you to experience the weight of that effort, not as punishment, but as a lesson. You begin to feel exhausted, anxious, and emotionally drained. That exhaustion is a signal. It is your soul telling you that you are carrying what was never meant to be carried by you. Detachment is the moment you loosen your grip and say, Ya Allah, I have done what I can within your limits. The rest belongs to you. This is not passive. This is tawakkul with clarity. When you pull away from forcing conversations, Allah begins to clarify intentions. When you stop chasing explanations, Allah exposes truths. When you withdraw from emotional struggle, Allah rearranges circumstances. This is not magic. It is spiritual order being restored. Many people block Allah's help without realizing it. They hold on too tightly to people, outcomes, and expectations. There is no space left for divine intervention. Detachment creates that space. It opens your hands instead of clenching them. The Quran reminds us that Allah is al-Latif, subtle in His ways. He does not always intervene loudly. Often, He works quietly through distance, delays, and silence. When you detach, you become patient enough to notice these signs instead of fighting them. This is why pulling away often brings relief you did not expect. The anxiety reduces. The constant overthinking slows down. You stop checking, waiting, and worrying. That calm is not emptiness. It is Allah replacing chaos with sakina. When you stop managing everything, Allah begins managing what you could never control. Hearts shift. Situations resolve. People either step up with sincerity or are gently removed from your path. Both outcomes are mercy. There is also a deep spiritual protection in detachment. Allah removes certain people only after you stop clinging to them. As long as you are attached, separation would break you. Detachment prepares your heart so that when Allah redirects, it does not shatter you. This is why some distances feel painful at first, but peaceful later. In the beginning, your ego resists. Your nafs wants certainty and reassurance. But as time passes, you realize that what left your life was draining your iman, not strengthening it. When you pull away, you also stop interfering with Allah's timing. You stop rushing what is meant to unfold gradually. You stop trying to extract clarity before it's time. Islam teaches patience not as waiting passively, but as trusting actively. Detachment aligns you with that trust. You begin to understand that what is written for you will reach you without desperation. What is not written will never stay, no matter how much effort you pour into it. This understanding frees you from emotional bargaining. Allah's involvement becomes more visible when you are no longer frantic. You notice how things resolve themselves without confrontation, how doors close without drama, how new paths open quietly. This is why people are often surprised by how much changes when they pull away. They expect loss, they receive relief, they expect emptiness, they receive clarity. When Allah steps in, He does not just fix the situation. He fixes your heart. He teaches you independence from creation and reliance on Him. That lesson stays with you long after the situation ends. Pulling away is an act of faith. It is saying, I trust you more than I trust my fears. I trust you more than I trust my ability to control outcomes. I trust you with what I love. That level of trust is powerful. And when Allah sees that trust, He takes care of what you released. Not always in the way you expected, but always in the way you needed. This is the secret people don't talk about. Detachment does not mean you lose support. It means you exchange unreliable support for divine support. When you step back, Allah steps forward, and nothing compares to that. 5. Silence after detachment creates respect. Silence is one of the most misunderstood actions in human interaction. People assume silence means weakness, confusion, or emotional collapse. Islam teaches something very different. Silence, when rooted in detachment, is not emptiness, it is restraint, and restraint carries weight. When you are emotionally attached, silence feels impossible. You feel the urge to clarify, defend, explain, or react. Your mind races, and your heart pushes you to fill every gap with words. This is not strength, this is anxiety trying to regain control. Detachment changes your relationship with silence. When you pull away emotionally, you stop reacting immediately. You stop responding to every tone, shift, every delay, every perceived slight. You no longer feel responsible for managing how others interpret you. That is when silence becomes powerful. Islam places great value on guarding the tongue. Words spoken in emotional urgency often carry regret. Silence allows wisdom to catch up with emotion. It creates space between what you feel and what you choose to express. That space is where dignity lives. Silence after detachment sends a clear message without confrontation. It says you are not available for emotional games. It says you are not panicking. It says you are grounded enough to let things unfold without forcing a response. People notice this immediately. When you stop explaining yourself, people are forced to think. When you stop defending your intentions, people begin to question their assumptions. When you stop reacting, the emotional leverage others had over you disappears. This is not manipulation. It is self-control. Most disrespect thrives on reaction. Arguments grow because someone reacts emotionally. Power struggles exist because someone needs to be heard. Silence removes fuel. Without fuel, tension collapses. Islam does not teach silence to suppress truth. It teaches silence to protect it. There is a difference. You speak when speech brings benefit. You remain silent when speech would only feed ego, conflict, or misunderstanding. Detachment gives you the clarity to know the difference. When your silence is rooted in faith, it does not feel passive. It feels intentional. You are not withdrawing to punish others. You are withdrawing to protect your peace and your iman. This kind of silence creates respect because it signals emotional maturity. It tells people you are not impulsive. You are not desperate for control. You are not easily provoked. In a world addicted to noise, restraint stands out. People are used to immediate reactions. They are used to emotional explanations. When those disappear, they feel the shift. They become more careful with their words. They approach you with more thought. They listen more closely when you do speak. Silence also forces accountability. When you stop chasing answers, people must sit with their own behavior. When you stop asking for reassurance, people must confront their intentions. Detachment removes your participation from dysfunction. There is also inner respect that forms within you. When you remain silent instead of reacting, you respect yourself. You reinforce your own boundaries. You teach your nafs that not every emotion requires expression. This strengthens your character. Silence after detachment is not cold. It is calm. It is the quiet confidence of someone who knows their worth does not need defending. It is the stillness of someone who trusts Allah to reveal truth in His time. The Prophet was known for speaking little but meaning much. His silence was not absence, it was presence. It commanded attention because it came from wisdom, not fear. When you practice this kind of silence, your words become rare and valuable. People stop taking your presence for granted. They understand that access to your thoughts and emotions is no longer automatic. That is where respect is born. Silence also protects your heart. It prevents you from saying things you would later regret. It keeps you from entangling yourself emotionally in situations that do not deserve your energy. It gives Allah room to handle matters without interference. This is why silence after detachment feels different. It is not heavy, it is relieving. You are no longer carrying the burden of managing perceptions. You are no longer exhausting yourself trying to be understood. by those who choose not to understand. You let Allah speak through outcomes, and outcomes speak louder than words ever could. In time, people either rise to meet your level of calm, or they fall away entirely. Both results bring peace. Silence does not make you invisible. It makes you undeniable. Because when you finally speak, people listen. And that is the respect detachment creates. 6. Detachment protects your iman from emotional chaos. One of the quiet dangers of emotional attachment is how easily it begins to interfere with your faith. At first, it feels harmless. You care deeply. You invest emotionally. You hope things work out. But slowly, without realizing it, your heart starts reacting more to people than to Allah. Your mood rises and falls with messages, attention, and outcomes. Your peace becomes conditional. That is where iman begins to weaken, not suddenly, but gradually. Islam never asked you to detach from feeling. It asked you to detach from emotional chaos. Emotional chaos is when your heart is constantly unsettled, when you wake up anxious about how someone might treat you today, when your focus in salah is interrupted by overthinking, when dua becomes less about Allah and more about controlling a situation, when disappointment with people spills into frustration with qadr. This is not a lack of faith, but it is a sign that attachment has crossed its healthy boundary. Detachment restores order. When you detach, your heart slowly returns to its proper alignment. You remember that Allah is the source of stability, not people. You stop expecting emotional fulfillment from creation in a way that only the Creator can provide. That shift alone brings relief to your soul. Many people don't realize how much emotional attachment drains their spiritual energy. Constant worry, anticipation, and disappointment exhaust the heart. An exhausted heart struggles to remain present with Allah. Detachment conserves that energy. It protects your emotional resources so they can be invested where they actually matter. When you stop clinging to outcomes, your trust in Allah deepens. You stop asking, "Why are they doing this to me?" and begin asking, "What is Allah teaching me here?" That question alone changes your internal state. You move from victimhood to reflection, from anxiety to awareness. Detachment also protects you from resentment. Emotional attachment, when unmet, often turns into bitterness. You give, you wait, you hope. And when things don't go your way, anger builds quietly. That anger hardens the heart. A hardened heart finds it difficult to feel softness in worship. Islam values a heart that remains soft but strong. Detachment allows softness without fragility. When you detach, you still care, but you are no longer consumed. You still love, but you are not dependent. You still hope, but you are not desperate. This balance keeps your iman steady even when relationships fluctuate. Another hidden benefit of detachment is patience. Emotional attachment makes you impatient because you want immediate reassurance. Detachment teaches you to sit with uncertainty without collapsing. That patience is not passive. It is an active trust that Allah is working even when you cannot see it. This kind of patience strengthens faith. When you are no longer emotionally hijacked, your reactions change. You stop responding impulsively. You stop making decisions from fear. You stop saying things you later regret. Your character improves, not because you forced it, but because your heart is calmer. A calm heart hears guidance more clearly. Detachment also brings sincerity back into your actions. When you are emotionally attached, even good deeds can become transactional. You give expecting closeness. You forgive expecting appreciation. You stay expecting change. When expectations are not met, disappointment follows. Detachment purifies intention. You give because it is right, not because you want something in return. You forgive because Allah loves forgiveness, not because you are afraid of losing someone. This sincerity is beloved to Allah. There is also protection and detachment from spiritual burnout. When your emotional world is chaotic, everything feels heavy. Worship feels forced. Dua feels repetitive. Detachment lightens that load. You are no longer carrying emotional battles into your ibadah. You come to Allah with a clearer heart. People often think they need more control to feel safe. Islam teaches the opposite. You need more surrender. Detachment is surrender without despair. It is saying, Ya Allah, I trust you enough to let go. That trust strengthens iman in ways nothing else can. When your faith is protected, everything else benefits. Your decisions become wiser. Your boundaries become firmer. Your emotions become manageable instead of overwhelming. You stop reacting to people and start responding from values. This is why detachment is not emotional coldness. It is spiritual protection. You are not becoming distant from life. You are becoming closer to Allah. And when that happens, emotional chaos loses its power over you. Your heart becomes steadier. Your faith becomes quieter but deeper. Your peace becomes less dependent on circumstances. That is what detachment does. It shields your iman from storms you were never meant to fight alone. And once your iman is protected, everything else finds its place. 7. The ultimate glow-up is inner independence. Most people think a glow-up is something visible, a change in appearance, a shift in lifestyle, a new confidence that shows on the outside. Islam cuts deeper than that. The most powerful transformation is not what people see. It is what no longer controls you. Inner independence is the point where your heart no longer needs permission to be at peace. Before this stage, your emotional state is negotiated daily. You feel good when you are wanted. You feel heavy when you are ignored. You feel confident when you are praised. You feel small when you are questioned. Your inner world becomes a reaction to other people's behavior. That is not strength. That is quiet captivity. Islam was never meant to be lived this way. Inner independence begins when you realize that your worth was never up for discussion. Allah gave it to you before anyone knew your name. No relationship can add to it. No rejection can subtract from it. Detachment is what allows this truth to settle deeply, instead of remaining a concept. This is why detachment feels uncomfortable at first. You are stepping out of emotional dependence. Your nafs resists because it was used to external reassurance. It was used to being fed by attention, approval, and closeness. When that supply is reduced, there is withdrawal, confusion, a sense of emptiness. But that emptiness is not loss. It is space. And space is necessary for growth. Inner independence grows in that space. You begin to hear yourself think again. Your decisions become clearer because they are no longer filtered through fear of abandonment. You stop asking, "What will they think?" and start asking, "Is this pleasing to Allah?" That shift is massive. When your reference point changes, your behavior changes naturally. You no longer chase alignment. You attract it. You no longer beg for clarity. You move with clarity. You no longer explain your boundaries. You live them. This is where the glow-up becomes undeniable. People notice something is different about you, but they can't explain it. You are calmer, but not passive. Softer, but not weak. Less reactive, but more present. You are no longer emotionally available to chaos, drama, or manipulation. Inner independence gives you the ability to stand alone without feeling lonely. That is rare. Most people confuse solitude with abandonment. Islam teaches solitude as a place of strength. The Prophet found clarity in seclusion before revelation. Distance can be a place where Allah prepares you, not where He leaves you. When you stop needing people to complete you, relationships change. You choose instead of cling. You observe instead of assume. You invest where there is reciprocity instead of hope alone. This is not selfishness, it is stewardship of the heart. Your heart is an amana. Giving it to people who mishandle it is not generosity. It is negligence. Detachment trains you to guard your heart without hardening it, to love without losing yourself, to care without collapsing. Inner independence also sharpens your standards, not because you became demanding, but because you became clear. You no longer tolerate inconsistency and call it patience. You no longer accept emotional confusion and call it fate. You no longer excuse disrespect and call it understanding. You understand that peace is not something you negotiate for. It is something you protect. This glow-up is not loud. It does not announce itself. There are no speeches, no dramatic exits, no explanations. There is simply a quiet withdrawal from what no longer aligns. A refusal to over-invest. A refusal to over-explain. That quietness unsettles people who were used to your emotional availability. They notice your absence before they notice your growth. They feel the gap you no longer rush to fill. And that is when they notice you more, not because you changed your appearance, but because you changed your attachment. Inner independence also strengthens your relationship with Allah. When people no longer sit at the center of your emotional world, Allah returns there. Your dua becomes less frantic and more trusting. Your salah becomes calmer. Your heart is not racing while you stand before Him. You begin to feel supported even when you are alone. That is a sign of spiritual maturity. This glow-up also protects you from future pain. When loss comes, and it always does in some form, it does not destroy you. You feel it, but you do not lose yourself inside it. You grieve without collapsing. You accept without bitterness. You move forward without carrying resentment. That is power. Inner independence does not mean you do not value people. It means you value Allah more. And when Allah is your anchor, relationships become additions, not lifelines. You stop needing people to stay for you to be okay. You stop fearing distance. You stop chasing closure. You trust that what leaves was never meant to stay, and what stays will not require you to shrink. This is why detachment is the ultimate glow-up. It gives you something no trend, no validation, and no relationship ever could. Freedom. Freedom from emotional bargaining. Freedom from overthinking. Freedom from needing to be chosen. When you reach this stage, you don't announce it. You live it. And people notice. Because a woman who is emotionally independent, spiritually grounded, and internally anchored is impossible to ignore. Not because she demands attention, but because she no longer needs it. Detachment is not about becoming distant from the world. It is about becoming rooted in the right place. When your heart stops clinging to people, outcomes, and expectations, it finally rests where it was always meant to rest, with Allah. This is why everything changes when you pull away. You stop leaking energy. You stop negotiating your worth. You stop exhausting yourself trying to be understood by those who were never listening. In that stillness, clarity rises. Peace settles. Strength returns. People notice you more not because you disappeared, but because you are no longer chasing their attention. Your presence becomes intentional. Your absence becomes meaningful. Your silence becomes heavy with self-respect. Detachment teaches you a powerful truth. What is meant for you will come without desperation, and what leaves was never holding you together. Allah does not take anything away without replacing it with something better for your heart, your faith, or your future. When you trust Allah more than you trust attachment, fear loosens its grip. You move through life with calm instead of anxiety, dignity instead of desperation, faith instead of control. This is the real glow-up. Not external change, but inner freedom. Not emotional coldness, but spiritual strength. Not needing to be chosen, but knowing you are already held. And when your heart finally learns to let go for the sake of Allah, everything that truly belongs to you finds you without effort. That is what detachment gives you, and that is why it changes everything.